Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Good Old Fashioned Philly Wrestling Podcast. My name is Rick Reinhart, and I am here to talk to you about pro wrestling. The first thing I want to do today is I want to give a big shout out to the guys from ECW, being that you guys entertained me when I was 14 years old, loving pro wrestling in its heyday from 97 to 2001. What a run. What a run you guys had, man. We all had, just being a part of the atmosphere. The other thing that I want to do is I want to talk about the Eliminators, because they were one of the greatest tag teams I've ever seen in my life. My second favorite tag team of all time, only behind Demolition. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Eliminators and what made them who they are as a tag team. When they came into the league, they had gone through a couple of different phases. And then once they hit that late 96, early 97 run, right before the ECW's first pay-per-view, Barely Legal, they were just red hot on fire. And they were doing some of the most innovative tag team wrestling I had ever seen. Very high-flying, very risk-taking, but also very precise, innovative, and creative. So I loved watching these guys wrestle, man. Thinking back on it, it's really interesting the dynamics those two had. I heard a story a while back about them getting stuck up on the streets of Philly when they were, just moved to the area or whatever, and a dude pulled a gun on them, and according to Perry Saturn, John Cronus put his finger inside the gun and said "bang" with a smile or "boop" or something like that. And the dude got freaked out who had the gun and just ended up leaving him alone and running off into the night. And that kind of shows you what kind of guy John Cronus was, man. He was a crazy fuck. And with Perry Saturn, you could also see him giving a lot of direction to Cronus in the ring. And that also kind of shows a little bit of leadership and the fact that Perry Saturn was one of the trainers at the House of Hardcore, ECW's training school back in the day. I got to say, they were a fucking great tag team. And Perry Saturn ended up splitting after he got injured where his leg was real banged up. And, he went and got a payday from WCW, but was also utilized in Raven's flock. Raven, former ECW wrestler who just crossed over to WCW territory or just came back, really. Saturn was linked with him. And Saturn had a run, in the TV title part of the card. And, him, Raven, and Kidman had some memorable stuff in Raven's flock with some of these other guys. And it was what it was, you know what I mean? It was interesting to see Perry Saturn be completely utilized differently than he was in ECW, because I knew him as a tag wrestler, a high flyer, somebody that was really fucking innovative with what he was doing. And he had to change his whole style up, I believe, because of his knee injury. And he did change it up, though. I mean, he got by as a mat wrestler, and I think that also goes to show you how the depth of his ability to wrestle and adapt. I think he was from, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be mistaken, but I think he was up from the Killer Kowalski School of Training. Which, that says a lot about his training right there, with some of the other guys who have trained there. So Perry Saturn then joins the Revolution with the franchise, Benoit, Malenko, and, they have a little run there. And Perry Saturn started to bring back some of his more high-risk stuff. I remember that balcony jump that he did really, really fucking high up. Really high up. I mean, just higher than shit I've seen New Jack do, So that was really interesting to see too, because it's like with Saturn, it's almost like he's one of those artists that keeps you guessing. It's almost like, why is he doing what he's doing? And then when you figure out why, you say, oh, that makes sense. It clicks, So then Perry Saturn went over to the WWE with the New Radicals right before the end of WCW, and that was pretty much the end of WCW. When WWE got Benoit, Saturn, Eddie Guerrero, Malenko, that was pretty much the end of WCW, and that was the end stages of maybe the final bidding battle that went on in the Monday Night Wars. Perry Saturn ended up coming into his own in the WWE in a different kind of way than what, like I said again, like in a different kind of way than what you expected. Perry Saturn got the moppy gimmick and was doing his thing as a crazy man that was talking to a mop. And it was getting over with the fans. And I've heard numerous stories about Perry Saturn, getting the ring rats going with that mop. So it is what it is. And he was also put with Terry Runnels as a manager, and that was a good combination. And we saw a different look with Perry, almost kind of like a young superstar Billy Graham or a little or Big Papa Pump kind of thing. I should say a littler kind of superstar Billy Graham, because Perry had a different kind of physique, but at the same time he had a certain kind of look with how they were dressing him up. And with Terry, she could pull off anything. And if you're out there, Terry Runnels, you can always lean on me. You know what I mean? When things aren't good, But I'm gonna now shift back to John Cronus here in ECW. John Cronus kept going in ECW when Perry Saturn left and was teamed with New Jack for a little bit. New Jack from the Gangsters, and John Cronus was from the Eliminators, so they called them the Gangstinators. And this is what I'll say about that, is I don't think it was the best tag team to do it or anything like that, but when New Jack would come to the ring, he would light that motherfucker up at the ECW arena. I mean, we would all get the fuck out of his way. He was that much of a fucking crazy fuck. So, we knew it was on, and we knew we had to be careful in the crowd when that dude came out. And, Natural Born Killers, Ice Cube theme song in Dre, don't get no better, man. You know what I'm saying? So much love to New Jack, and much love and R.I.P. to Cronus wherever he's at in the multiverse. But what I do want to say is about the Gangstinators is they were really over with the crowd. So you have to say that the tag team worked. Like, it did work. It did go over. And Cronus was doing moves that most big men his size would not do. Like, 450 splashes, moonsaults, jumping out into the concrete from the ring. I mean, he was doing some crazy shit. And, it's a shame that he did pass away, at an early age. And, much love to him. And, I still hear stories down at the arena about people that knew him and shit like that. I was at a bar one night and somebody was like, "Oh, I knew Cronus." She was upset of his passing and all that, and it's understandable. You know what I mean? He seemed like a cool guy. With Perry also too, this is worth mentioning. Is there's a YouTube story out there with Perry that when he was out there, Perry Saturn was out there, and he was fucked up on drugs at the time. But he came across a woman that was being raped, and he was able to intervene and help save her and get her out of there. He did get shot in the process, but lived through it. So, I here at the Pro Wrestling Archives, I look at as Perry Saturn as one of those twisted hero kind of people. Somebody who's had, who has made some, crazy decisions with his life, but at the same time, you could still tell that he has a moral compass and all that, doing some good work like that, to help somebody out who is in need. You know what I mean? I don't know what else to say about that besides thank you, Perry, for being out there and being a good guy for the ladies out there. The other thing I have to bring up is Perry's infamous match with Mike Bell, where Perry was dropped on his head twice in the match, blacked out, and just beat the fucking shit out of Mike Bell. It was crazy. You can go watch that match on YouTube if you haven't seen it. Any of the younger guys out there that might have missed that. I know I missed it as being one of the, I guess I'm one of the older guys now. But, I wasn't watching pro wrestling at that time after Vince bought WCW. To me, that was the end of it all. And thinking back on this, I want to talk about the change of times back then, because the change of times back then happened so fast that I don't think anybody realized it was the change of times. Vince bought WCW and then ECW, and shortly thereafter, 9/11 happened, and then, I know my whole school switched over from listening to hip-hop over to rock and roll around that time, so everybody started playing instruments, and that was another weird thing. We all started to play music as a refuge for the pro wrestling stuff getting kind of crappy. And I know that there was some good matches in that early 2000s period. I know there were some good matches. Like Hogan versus Rock, and Eddie Guerrero's whole run, and JBL's whole run, and there was definitely some good shit that I missed out on. Rob Van Dam's world title run. There was definitely some good shit that I missed out on, but at the same time, I couldn't really get down with watching the programs at that time, and it's gotten so much worse since, where I can't even watch WWE, and I barely can watch AEW. However, like my man, the big man, Jim Cornette says, who's kicking ass right now in the world of professional wrestling, kicking ass and asking questions later, no doubt about it. But he definitely has made a good point on one of his recent podcasts where he says that the indies are where it's at. If you're gonna do the pro wrestling stuff, nowadays, and you're with an indie company, that's really that's living out the dream. So I'm lucky enough to have worked now in the Philadelphia area with a bunch of different indie promotions, and I have to say that Classic Championship Wrestling is the best right now. Much love to Rob Noxious and the crew. So with that being said, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I have to cover here on this episode of the Good Old Fashioned Philly Wrestling Podcast. And this is what I'll say is I've been going back and watching some matches, some old matches on YouTube, and checking out some different territories. And I just want to bring this up. When the Sandman left ECW and went to WCW, this is one of the more interesting things that I've found out from going back, is the Sandman was paired with Chastity. And I remember her in ECW, and I didn't know that she was a former porn star, so I had to go back out and check out what she was doing in her earlier career. And I got to say, Chastity is definitely a bad motherfucker. Much love to her if she's out there listening. We would love to have you come down to the Pro Wrestling Archives and do a shoot interview if you are out there, Miss Chastity. Now, with that being said, Bobby the Brain Heenan was doing some fucking incredible commentating with Tony Schiavone over the matches the Sandman was doing where he was billed as Hack. You really got to go back and check out what Bobby Heenan is saying during the Sandman's matches. I mean, that must have been a dream for the Sandman to have Bobby Heenan call some of his matches, because I remember the Sandman way back in 1989, 1990 shows down at the Civic Center in Philly, and he actually came and worked one of my he worked my 6th grade birthday party at Wynwood Lanes, and it was just really great to see the Sandman rise in the world of professional wrestling. When he was getting down with ECW, we had all felt like he had made it, and he was a hometown guy. But to watch his matches in WCW with Bobby the Brain Heenan calling it, it's fucking awesome. So check that out. Let me know what you think. Drop a comment. Fucking call me up on the fucking telephone. Let's hang out. I'm tired of people not hanging out. So this is Rick Reinhart here at the Pro Wrestling Archives, good old-fashioned Philly Wrestling Podcast, saying good night.